Hello guys and welcome back to a new week's episode, and as you can see I placed the cities. Yeah, crazy I know, but I still don't have an ideology for these people right here. So this is part 20 I think, or 21, I don't know. I'm always wrong with this shit. But the first thing you're going to look in is, of course, the stats. So, as you can see, the new stats uh, not that different really, but we see the Euro country really starting to show off the power, and also stability in India is not the best, because as you can see, they get a lot of people again. So yeah, and that's basically everything that changed. I mean, uh, nothing much changed. So, yeah, let's just get into the episode. And, whoops. And the first thing we see is that North Africa expands more into Africa. And this event is also called the Great Exploration of North Africa. I know, really creative name, but they expand a lot. One country really makes that possible, and that is the East African country. You might think, how the fuck does East Africa have something to do with the exploration of North Africa? That's because East Africa is pumping a lot of aid and everything into the North African country to, of course, counter Egypt. The problem for Egypt is they could do it too with the Mozambique country, but the Mozambique country is neutral. So, yeah. And we actually see more big cities being founded um, alongside the East African coast, or Southeast African coast, I guess. So, we really see that the Mozambique Empire gets really, really strong. Of course, these major cities are not as big as like these the ones in Germany or India, but they are still relatively big. So yeah. Um, After they explored a lot of North Africa, we see Egypt also expanding a lot, which was expected to happen. Yeah, that's kind of the thing. Egypt is pumping a lot of money into that, but they do not really get anything from that. So they waste a lot of money actually. It's a relatively good move by these Africans if if you consider the fact that East Africa is a bit weaker than Egypt is. We see a different thing happening because we see the formation of a new alliance that is the Square Alliance, and it's formed between Egypt and this Arabian tribal state, I guess. And in counter to that, East Africa forms the Circular Alliance together with the North African country. This spikes tensions really, really high in Africa, and we also see that the most important events shift from Europe down to Arabian Africa, which is an interesting development. And next thing is also in Africa, which is the war between these two countries. So why do they go to war? Because I think this country was the original government of the North African country or something like that. But um, North Africa wants to unify North Africa. So we see them starting to invade and instantly capturing this city. But one big difference now is this city holds on and they slowly but surely push and push and push. But when you look here, it's really slow until this country makes a huge counteroffensive, which was not expected by the High Command. So they get completely overrun. This Carthage country, I guess, takes back its capital city, pushes them back out of the country, starts to invade the country, and captures this major city. Of course, um, the North African country can push back, but cannot recapture that city right there. They also can push back the Carthaginians to this major city, but they cannot capture it. They get hold, they get holded, and um, then this Moroccan country sees the weakness of the African country, pushes in, takes these two major cities instantly, threatens a third one. Then um, the leader of this country drafts a peace deal between these two countries. And in this peace treaty, we can see that this major city gets taken by Carthage. This is a huge embarrassment for the North African country, but the worst is not over yet because we see the Moroccan country continue to push these two major cities, crumbling the supply in the northern city. With this, Egypt also sees that this country is fucking weak. Then we see East African volunteers, or mostly volunteers, getting put on a boat and naval invading these two cities, restoring the supply and crumbling it for the Moroccans. The Moroccans get encircled right here, and after a few months of fighting, the North African country gets back these two cities, and then a ceasefire is offered by Morocco, but then the North African country does not accept it, and the push continues into the Moroccan country, and that's when they finally surrender, and we will see a peace deal right here. And in this peace treaty, we can see that North Africa annexes this one major city right here, and now Egypt doesn't think that the East African and North Africans are that weak anymore, but it's still really embarrassing that they lost to Carthage, a country which has way less major cities than everything. So not many countries have respect from the North African country because Morocco also has a lot of internal issues, and the Moroccan leader decides to expand more in Africa, just like the other countries, um, because he doesn't want to show that his country is that weak as it is, but we just saw how weak Morocco really is. Losing against a nation that just lost a war is kind of cringe, to be honest. And there's a lot of internal rebellions and everything. And the people are not really liking it that the American government is spending so much money on expanding into wasteland, basically. So, yeah. And also English, I guess, um, is are now back, expanding their colony. And then we also see the Mozambique country expanding more and more in Africa, but not that much, only a few more miles. But this also puts the East African country in risk, so East Africa starts to explore a lot, and they find this big ass lake, and they explore it, and then they start to take it, or start taking, or yeah, start taking it, and they explore a lot more of Africa. So it's not only the great exploration of North Africa, it's also the great exploration of East Africa. So we see a lot of expanding in Africa into wasteland, except of course Lake Victoria, I think it's called. Maybe this is Lake Victoria, but I don't care. And then they also, by the way, find this lake. And East Africa is about to get way stronger if they can get both of these lakes completely. So the monarch is really happy right now, but that's now finally it for Africa. And we see this anarchist country, I guess, expand and expanding a lot and really fast. And then we see them breaking apart. So the basically anarchist country broke because they don't have an government, because anarchism doesn't really work. And we see the country splitting into four parts. One where the original government, which doesn't exist, still lives on, uh, but completely weak without a major city, without a capital. Um, Not much people live in the center right here, and this is basically just free land because no one's going to defend that shit. So it will probably get carved up soon by these three countries. And you might wonder why three countries? Um, Three different ideologies. Might think, weren't there four different ideologies? Yes. But the Social Democrats and Conservative Democrats and every Democrat basically lives in this country, so this is just a conservative or just a democracy. Conservative right now can change, is a democracy, so of course it's going to change. And one monarchist country right here, and one communist country right here. And of course, every country gets supplied except the democratic one and the anarchist one, so only these two, because India. But the people don't like it that they support other countries while their country is still completely fucked. And the one smart Indian leader of North India said, "Oh, cool, people are protesting, let's distract them." And distract them, yeah, he does. And when he launches a full-scale invasion into the Persian country to capture back the religious land that was stolen from them. In only 3 weeks, they captured the city in 5 weeks after the invasion, they can capture this city. And Persia has a government now and everything, but they couldn't really expand the military because people were not quite nationalistic enough to fight for Persia, just like we saw when this country beat up Persia. And 2 months they reached this city, and after 4 months they reached this city. So they are getting slowed down, but they still capture a lot of land. And after 8 months, they take this city, and and the Persians want to surrender. Like, look at that. By the way, South India is not attacking North India because India would collapse. Not only North India, but both Indian countries would probably collapse into civil war if this happens now, because both countries haven't really stabilized, and the North Indian country is not collapsing because they have major military victories right now. So the people are now actually supporting the war, which makes the war a bit quicker, which means after only 1 year of invasion, they start to reach the capital, circling it, and more and more shit happens after uh, 20 months they capture the city, and the capital gets see gets encircled. And now, why do no other countries get involved with that? I already said why South India isn't getting involved in it, but why not these countries? This country still has a peace deal. This country isn't allowed to attack them, and this country is also not allowed to attack them. Plus, both of these countries want to focus more on their internal problems that they have right now. So, but there is hope for the Persian country because, as you can see, they have complete naval supremacy, and they actually expanded a bit to cut off more supplies, which means this city which means this city is actually pretty good fortified. And we see a small ship going down here, going over to this city, taking it, and with a complete surprise, we see that the Indian military is completely overrun because uh, the per the Persians see it as a great patriotic war, and the Indians get pushed way back. And at this point, like the Indians got pushed back in like 3 months. Like, that's relatively fast. And at this point, the Indian government thinks to itself, mm, maybe the war we should have offered them a peace deal a long time ago. So they offer them a peace deal, and the peace deal gets accepted. And right after the peace deal got accepted, the Indians want to do something, and that's destroying trade routes. They already destroyed trade routes in their retreat of the different cities. So when they retreated out of these cities, they already started to destroy the trade routes. So the Persian government was kind of expecting that. But yeah, now let's get to the peace here. And now in this peace treaty, we see India annexing its old lands, like you can see here. A bit different because they expanded a lot north, but they annexed their old land. And in the peace treaty, also the Persian country is forced to give up its navy right here. And the Persian country is now fucked. Not fucked, pissed And the Persian country is pissed, not necessarily because they lost the war, because they started to win a lot, but the support just kind of crumbled. And they are pissed because of the trade routes. And this is great news for South India because they see an ally, not really an ally, but in country with the same enemy as them. So there's no cooperations between these two countries because both countries just are like completely opposite ideologies. So yeah, but India knows that it gets attacked probably by two sides. So if Persia invades again, South India will invade. If South India invades, Persia will invade. The North Indians know that, and they know they are almost fucked. So they're going to do something about it, but that's kept in secret. So we will see. The next thing that happens is that the Great Scottish Empire, um, or the new Great Scottish Empire, is exploring more of Greenland and saying like, hey, they are taking wasteland in Africa, just let us take wasteland in Greenland. So they take Greenland and call it Iceland. Yeah, um, because they have brains. So Norway didn't expand in a long time, so they're going to do that now, and they're going to have a great time doing it. As you can see, they just like start exploring everything up here in the mountains because they now have the technology to do that. And they discover more of the coast here in Russia. And also Finland does also start to expand a lot. So the rivalry between those countries uh, still exists, but nothing's going to happen right now. But a place where not much happens is in Eastern Europe. Here, these countries don't really do anything of key. Of course, this country kind of was important with the whole military horde thing and everything. But the first thing we see is the dissolution of this alliance because they don't have any common enemies anymore. There's no big threat that all countries have to worry about. Also, these two countries had good relations, but no, they don't anymore. So they both don't see any reason to stay in an alliance. So the alliance just breaks up. These two, of course, leaving first, but then this country left like 1 week after. So yeah, but we see a few regional disputes between these two countries. So they have a war about it. We see this pinkish, I don't know, country invading into the orange country with a great spearhead towards these cities and actually threatening to encircle one. The orange country retreats out of this, gets pushed back to about this line. Then a general of the orange country sneaks up behind the border right here, goes to the border all unnoticed, then steps up behind the city, takes it while the purple country is invading this city, cuts it off, secures the lines, and the last thing this general right here can do is take this city and hold on onto these cities, and a lot of fighting happens between these cities, not only not only on the cities, but also between to cut off them, but they stand strong. Where the orange country takes back most of its land and also starts to invade the other country. And this war started shortly after this war started. So this is now a stalemate. Um, for now, and we're going to continue this war in the next episode because there's only one more thing happening today, and that is something in Africa. Funny, I know, but we see more explorations by British naval, or by English, naval vessels, and then we don't see them anymore because they found land where they think they can start a nation, and so they do. They start a nation and found one, and this is a great place to start a country because firstly you cannot see it, and secondly nothing is around you. Just basically the reason why these countries got so big because nothing is around them. That's why such more countries as this exist. And this was the last thing that happened. But one more event that I wanted to tell you about is that this country has some internal issues since they expanded this much in like 1 month. There's a lot of problems with the people in this country. Uh, there's a lot of problems that have the people have in this country. So yeah, they still build the trade routes right here and connect a lot of them up. And of course, we also see trade routes getting formed across. And at this point, this country has gotten so much more efficient at building trade routes. That's why they have so much more. And they also started cooperating with more and more different countries, just like the Orange country. But yeah, this was it for today's episode. So a lot of important events happened today. So like and subscribe and bye.